Hi, it's Dr. Zina. I am so thrilled to be part or to be here with you today. It's always an honor to spend time with you, to be together, to learn from my amazing guests. If you are a new listener, I want to take a moment and personally welcome you to Diversity House podcast family. If you have been listening and watching our podcast for a while and you have not hit that record or subscribe button yet, now it's the time. It's free. It helps us to reach even more people. I promise to make this podcast even better as I go. So help me to welcome my powerful and amazing guests for today. They are doing, I, I may say, one of the hardest work, charity work. So thank you very much for being part of this podcast. And now I'm going to give them the floor to introduce themselves and tell us more about themselves. The floor is yours, whoever wants to start. And I may say that this is a nice atmosphere for us all to be ourselves, to share, to be there is no professionalism, or don't feel that you need to be acting in a way. You can express yourself in the way you want. Yes, and this is going to be edited later, don't worry. So yeah, the floor is yours. Tell us more about yourselves first before we dig deep into talking about your charity.
You said that I was allowed to be childish, so
Yes.
So I laughed. My name's Claire Ives, and I am the Chief Operating Officer of AGK Kent Rivers. So we're quite new. We merged last year, and we cover from Faversham to Dartford and Medway towns.
Nice to meet you, Claire.
Well, shall I go next, Kerry?
Yes.
So I'm Jude Lee, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Citizens Advice in Swale, and we cover right out to Bourton near Canterbury, Faversham, Sittingbourne, and then we go as far as Rainham on the outskirts of Medway, and obviously the Isle of Sheppey.
Thank you, Jude.
I'm Kerry Philpott. I'm the Chief Executive of SATIDA. So we're a specialist women and children's domestic abuse service. And we run out of Swale across Kent. So delivering all of our services in Swale and Maidstone and another range of services Kent-wide.
Nice. Now we want, and I'm saying we because I'm including the audience later on who are going to be watching this podcast. Michelle is here.
Hi, Michelle.
Just waiting for Michelle. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, sorry.
It's all right. We can hear you, but we cannot see you yet.
Well, we can't hear Michelle now either.
No.
Right. Oh, it's not letting me do the camera for some reason. Sorry.
It's all right. Yes. So we are just introducing ourselves, and you came just on the right time. So tell us more about yourself, Michelle.
Well, I'm Michelle. I'm exhausted. No, so I run the charity Sittingbourne and Sheppey Help in Ukraine. So my charity's been welcoming all of the Ukrainian refugees as they've been coming into our county, whether to be with a host or through resettlement themselves. This time last year, our charity was looking for a new space, and lovely Claire Ives put us in contact with another local charity in the same position, and has gracefully allowed us the use of Heather House, for which we're now running our community cafe. So it's two charities have come together to open a community cafe, as
Yeah.
we're still doing our work with the Ukrainians.
Brilliant. That's a very good point you raised, Michelle, which we are going to talk about later, working together. But for now, I am interested to know more about you as individuals before we dig into the work you do. Your background, your hobbies, you as individual, who are you being at the moment?
Background, I'm from the Midlands, that moved down to Kent 30-something years ago. Have 4 children, 3 grandchildren, dogs, tortoises, fish, quite a little crowded house. So I can honestly say what I'm doing is pretty much a hobby for me. I enjoy it as much as I would a hobby. The madness of where we are is also my escape. So it's, apart from being with my family, it's what I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, interesting. It's always nice to be doing what you love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who wants to go next? Tell us more about you as individual.
I'll go, Nick. Do you know what? I think that the hardest part about this is that in the positions that we work in, you become your job.
Oh,
So it's really hard to sort of disassociate yourself with the fact that so much of your life is spent in your job. So I've got a 13-year-old son who keeps me busy. I've worked in the voluntary sector for 8 years now. And again, like I think that it takes a piece of you with it. So it's really hard to not include what I do for my job when I'm talking about myself.
that's true. It becomes part of your identity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do on a daily basis to bring joy to yourself? I know that the work you do brings joy to yourself, but other than work.
I try to only drink on the weekends. I think what I do is really rewarding. But I like to be outdoors when I can be, not stuck in an office, and just spend time with my family. I suppose that's pretty simple.
Yeah, good. Thank you for sharing. Carrie or Jude?
Yeah, so in terms of Claire says, it's really true. When you work as many hours as we work, the job becomes part of everything, and it's kind of hard sometimes to manage that work-life balance because there's always so much to do. But yeah, when there's finally some downtime, I've got a teenager and I live in a house that's being renovated, so that's kind of quite preoccupying. And I am training for the London Marathon, so there's quite a bit going on outside. And it's kind of one of those things. Claire said she likes to just drink at the weekends. It's kind of like, I don't know how Claire would find time to do it drink in the week. I mean, she's obviously kind of winning at something that I haven't quite mastered. To have some space in the week times, I think that's really hard, isn't it, Claire? When you
You have to
work in this.
sacrifice sleep sometimes to get the
Maybe
balance.
that's it. Yeah, try not to sacrifice sleep, and I definitely don't sacrifice cake. That's kind of one of the guilty pleasures because there's no time of the day that's not acceptable, I don't think.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you. Good.
Well, yeah, I guess. Well, I think I definitely resonate with what Claire and Carrie said. It's sort of the job is sort of all encompassing, and you sort of go to bed thinking about things, wake up thinking about things, and it's just that immense responsibility you feel to make sure you know, that your charity is running and able to sustain itself, because you know how many people it helps, and obviously how many people are employed and all of that. So that does weigh quite heavy. So I mean, I can quite easily find time for a glass of wine in the week, but I try not to, like Claire, and try and make till the weekend be good. In terms of, yeah, my life, like Claire and Kerry, I've got teenagers. Well, I've got 2 teenage girls, 17, 14, a son that's 20, but he's left home. So yeah, that brings with it its own challenges, should we say. And I enjoy, obviously love spending time with them when I can, and love socializing and being outside, exactly like Claire. I mean, you spend so much time in front of a computer. You know, if I could be outside doing something just in the fresh air. I'm not a fan of cold weather, but certainly when, you know, I do like warm weather. I'm definitely born in the wrong country in that respect, but I do like being outside, because you know, sometimes you're at a computer sort of 10 hours a day, and it can be unhealthy, I think. So it's trying to find that work-life balance. I've been with Citizens Advice since 2007, started as a volunteer when I was pregnant with my second child, because I wanted to do something, you know, use my brain, and I'd done a degree, but in history, didn't really know what to do with my life. Thought I need to, you know, someone said, why don't you volunteer at Citizens Advice? And that was the start of the journey. So but yeah, it's really rewarding work. I think all the others will agree. What we do is so rewarding, but it also takes a lot from you, and it's just that constant anxiety of, I think once you get to sort of the management level, you just that constant anxiety of, you know, where you're going to get the money from to keep going, and you know, and then that sort of responsibility for, as I said, like service users, just making sure you're able to support not only people that use your service, but the staff within it, because they all do an amazing job. And let's be honest, that, you know, it's not great money working in a charity sector. People don't do it for the money, they do it because they want to help the community. But the people put in such a lot of themselves, you know, and extra hours, and you know, support each other and all of that. So yeah, it's definitely I think a family working for a charity. They become your work family. I don't know if the others will agree. So you end up with 2 families, but that's quite nice.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and it's so interesting also to I'll not ask this question for now, but I'm really interested, since I know how hard it is to work in charity. How are you taking care of yourselves? But this question is not for now, for later. For now, let us know more about your charity now. What does your charity do? Yes, I know that you mentioned a bit when we started, but now let's dig deep into the work of each charity.
Shall I start?
Yes.
So I think most people can identify with the brand Age UK, but what they're not always familiar with is the fact that we're all of the separate Age UKs are independent. So what you perceive our charity might deliver isn't necessarily the truth of it. So we support adults over 50 and adults with learning disabilities. So and that in a range of services, which could be something as simple as you know, a weekly telephone call just to check in, to full domiciliary care at home. We've also got some residential settings and respite services. But I say our main focus with adults as they age, those living with dementia as well, is that people are aging well and have still got opportunities to you know, feel good about themselves and get satisfaction out of life. So and there are obviously so many factors that contribute to well-being. So we try to meet all of those needs.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claire, for introducing us to your charity and the amazing work you do with these particular people in the community. Thank you. Who wants to go next? Carrie, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's fine. Yeah, I'm happy to go next. So SATIDA is a specialist domestic abuse service, and we've been around, we're kind of getting into our 15th year as an organisation, but we didn't become a charity till a little bit longer on that journey. So yeah, we are here to meet the needs of those at risk or experiencing domestic abuse, to help increase safety, awareness, and promote positive futures and find ways for women to find their new future with living safely. I'm not a fan of the phrase "we're empowering women" because I don't believe that we do. What we're doing is we're providing activities and services which enables them to find the power from within themselves and make their changes that are sustainable for them and their children. So domestic abuse is really spoken about a lot in the media and on documentaries and TV programs, on the soaps. So I think the awareness now is as much higher than it was when I started in the sector, which is great. But I also think that it's becoming more of a problem in society because of the negative influences that are promoted as acceptable. So one of the things that we do as an organisation is try and raise awareness of how everybody can be a change maker in that space, calling out toxic masculinity and misogyny, and just trying to help kind of educate our next generation through our work with children and young people, so that hopefully the cycle of abuse will change for some, and as a society we can kind of work towards what our mission and vision is. So our vision is quite boldly to end domestic abuse, and we're completely not naive in the fact that we can't do that on our own. As a women's sector organisation, we need the community to be involved in that, and we especially need men to be part of that conversation, because male violence against women and girls can only be stopped when men stop being the perpetrators of that abuse. So kind of that's a little bit about us. In terms of size, we've got we're still a small charity by kind of definition of the charity sizes, but there's a team of 21, and we've got roughly 40 volunteers at any given time working across our services. So yeah, so we've got quite a presence and we do quite a lot. And I think that what we all know and what we all do in the charity sector is we really make what we do go a long way and try and reach as many as we can. So I think on an average year, we're reaching about 1,200 service users or beneficiaries. So it's quite a big scope for a small charity.
Yay, amazing work. And again, with another important participants in the community, women. Yeah, that's very important work you do, SATIDA. But what SATIDA stands for, the SATEDA.
Yeah. What does it stand for? So back in ye olde days when it all started, we used to be Swale Action to End Domestic Abuse. And then because of some of our services needing to be delivered beyond Swale, we couldn't really keep calling ourselves Swale Action to End Domestic Abuse. And the board were at that time really stuck on needing a name. And we was like, well, why don't we just be SATIDA and it not mean anything? So it technically in our articles means support and action to end domestic abuse. But we kind of very rarely use that. I think if I said that to somebody, one of my peers, they probably wouldn't have even heard that before.
Yeah, thank you. Jude.
Hello. Yeah, so citizens advice. So I think there's a common misconception of citizens advice is that we're a national organisation, and we are, in the sense that we're a member of a national body, but we are an independent charity. So we are completely responsible for our own sort of being in terms of funding and what we do and everything else. Citizens Advice has two aims. It's to offer advice and support to the community, but also to look at writing, sort of also supporting work and research and campaigning against social injustice. So that's a big aim of Citizens Advice, and we look to gather as much evidence as we can to perhaps lobby councillors or members of parliament and etc. to try and make change. So in terms of the advice that we give, we advise anybody on anything. However, our strategy is really about targeting groups of people who perhaps have less access to services, marginalised groups, minority groups who research has shown often are disadvantaged in lots of ways through education, healthcare, and in terms of access to what their legal rights might be. We try and offer advice in a number of ways. So we have a digital platform, a chatbot. We have an online portal where you can ask for help. We have a website. You can access this by phone. We have our drop-in services at our main offices in Faversham and Sittingbourne, and then we also deliver outreach work currently on the island at the Sheppey Gateway and in Merston at the Family Hub, and that's a new project for the Gypsy Roma traveller community. I'd say our main areas of advice have never really changed. They've always been, the top ones always been around benefits. Often that's people who have a disability and feel that they've been unfairly turned down for perhaps the benefit that they feel they're entitled to. We do a lot of income maximisation, so it's highlighting people that are missing out on vital money that they need to survive. Debt is another big area, so we will help people manage their debts. We've got resident debt advisors that are approved intermediaries, so they can do debt relief orders and bankruptcies and support people who may be struggling to cope. And we do a lot around energy and utility problems, people that are struggling with their energy companies, cost of living. I would say, looking at our statistics for the last year, 2/3 of people that access us are women. And we think that's because women are more likely to be perhaps struggling, more likely to be single parents, more likely to be victims of domestic abuse, more likely to need support. And, you know, generally speaking, women are a group that are disadvantaged in society. 2/3 of people also that see us also say that they have a register as having a disability or long-term health condition. So although we have an open door policy, it's interesting that the people that need our support are groups of people who may be disadvantaged through certain things in life. So I'd say on average we see about 3,000 people a year through various contacts. We offer casework for some, and one-off advice. It could be email advice. What we don't do is ever tell people what to do if they have a problem. We never say you should go and do this. It is about empowering people with knowledge, so and saying these are your options, these are your rights, these are the things you could do. What would you like to do if somebody has a learning difficulty or literacy issue or is digitally excluded? Then obviously we will provide support to enable them to exercise their rights. But it is about giving people options. So yeah, that's just a little bit. I mean, in terms of the other things we advise on, we do regularly advise on employment. People feel they've been unfairly dismissed, or they've been made redundant and don't know what to claim or where to go. We advise on family relationship breakdowns, bereavement. We advise on immigration up to tier 1, level 1, which is information-based advice on immigration. And consumer is another big one. If you've been sold that dodgy car by that dealer around the corner, we will tell you how to exercise your rights and potentially get a refund. But we do have a separate phone line through the National Service for consumer issues for that. So that's a little bit about what we do.
Wow. Charity work, I mean, what I see is that it's about giving hope, clarity, guidance, empowering with knowledge. It's certainly a hard work to do. So I'm really interested, and some of the audience and the listeners later on, when they are watching the recording, they would be asking, why charity work? There's a million other things you can do, but what drives you to do charity work? What's your motive? Claire.
Someone's got to do it.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the charity is something that, you know, everyone does every day. I think it's just how much you choose to live it. You know, I think it's like it formalizes that kind of helping the person that lives next door, so that people are safe with the advice that they're given. You know, that there are regulations in place, but it's out of necessity, isn't it? Which is, I think, if we all of our long-term goals, if there was a magic wand, was that we wouldn't exist. Because actually that's our aim. That's our long-term aim, is to, you know, we support older adults. I would like to live in a world where we're not having to lobby for the rights of our older people, you know, the people that have built our country and put these you know, put these systems in place. The reason why we're all here, but someone has to fight for them, and someone has to be a voice for them. And I would like to live in a world where that's not the case. So yeah, I suppose it's a little bit of it does make you feel good. It is really rewarding, but actually, like the end goal is for our support not to be needed.
Very powerful.
That's right, really, with that. It's you know, we're doing it because we can see small difference. And I think the unfortunate thing is, in the positions we're at, we don't see that often. And sometimes that gets a little bit diluted from when we're sitting there and having sleepless nights because you've got X amount of staff that you need to be keeping employed so that they can, you know, stay living in their houses and so forth. You kind of forget the end result, and then sometimes you then take that phone call in the office, or you would be the first person that opens the door when somebody's coming to one of our drop-ins, and that reminds you very quickly why the difference we do is important. And as Claire said, you know, it's important that all three of our organisations work to really high standards. You know, the Age UK and Citizens Advice come under national body, but, you know, even for a smaller organisation like us, working to those thresholds of Women's Aid and Save Lives just means that we know, and same as Claire and Jude, we're providing the best possible options for those that need to access our services, even though we kind of wish that they didn't need to access our services. So, you know, that's kind of what we do is, and I think for me, one of those motivations is being, don't say arrogant, being the best of the best is a really wrong kind of phrase, but being obsessed to be quality assured is really important. So I'm, you know, really passionate about making sure that I can drive that quality forwards, because then I know, like Claire says, we are making a difference to that person that might not have got, you know, all the right answers and all the right information from just anywhere. So professionalizing that do-gooder behavior, really.
Yeah, change making, helping others is helping oneself, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just I think you have to be an empath, don't you, to sort of do this sort of work. I think we all probably get something. You get something out of it. I think you wouldn't do this work if you didn't enjoy helping people and get, you know, feeling rewarded by that. And so I think that's certainly a driver. But yeah, it is very rewarding work. I mean, I just look at some of the other jobs out there, and I think I feel lucky that I do a job that I enjoy, and I do enjoy it. And that, I think you spend so much time in work, don't you? So much part of your life is in work, probably more than with your family and kids and anywhere else. So like, if you don't enjoy it, life's not much fun. So I think we all think, oh, I'm tired, I want a holiday, or want to, I'd like a week off, or this week's been horrific. But ultimately, I do a job that I love, so I've had it off. And I think a lot of people, that I do see that are sort of stuck in jobs that they don't really, they like or hate, or where they're not treated right, or, where they're not happy. And that can be so detrimental to your kind of physical, mental well-being and everything else. I think doing charity work. I think everybody that does charity work has similar ways of enjoying life and enjoys giving. That sounds corny, doesn't it? But there's no greater gift than giving. But it is that, isn't it? Like, you do, when you see a client or a service user that's had a terrible time, and you see that transformation with their life, it is such a feel-good factor. And to be up close and personal and see that journey and see that you can make a difference. And I don't know about Claire and Carey, but certainly, through friends and family, when they sort of ask you things or they've got a problem and you think, oh, I've learned that at work, I can help you with that. So, it does sort of feed into your normal life. And then you're able to support your immediate network and community if they need things, or signpost them to where they can get help. It's just definitely, it gives you the feel good factor. Yeah. It does make you very tired.
Yes. Certainly, you really enjoy what you're doing. That's why you are very passionate about helping others and making difference. Once again, thank you. And I think that it's the same thing that drives me to work at Diversity House, just because I want to help others. Because there was a point where I found people helping me, but now I am in the position of helping others, whether it's knowledge, whether it's mindset shifting, whether it is a piece of information, whether it is referral. What matters is that you gave that hope and clarity and empowering to other people. So yes, but now we're going to talk about something a bit different. What the things do you worry about in your workplace or as doing charity work? What makes you worry?
I don't think that that's a different question. I think that we'll all have the same response, and that is funding. How we continue to support people safely without cutting corners, giving people the level of support that they need, rather than what you can manage to do, and how you do that with funding cuts coming from every direction, and the cost of employing people growing every year. We definitely have a lot lower staff to client ratio than we did have 10 years ago. I would say, like, drastically. But it's just, that it's not just the clients at the end of the service, it's your staff team. It's your staff team as well. People that give, we watch our staff give every day. Again, like we do, a little bit of themselves to make a difference in someone's lives. You want to make sure that they're okay as well. So I think that is, I employed 220 staff. It's a big burden. How do you continue to operate when you know that the need is so high and we all have restrictions? There's definitely more that we could do, but we just haven't got the resources to do it.
Yeah, that's a big worry. Yes. Carrie and Jude, do you have anything you want to add?
Reiterate what Claire says. It's just a worry, and I just think with the way things are at the moment, with statutory services being so strapped for cash and cut back and stripped bare to the point where they can't cope with what they're supposed to be doing, that does fall onto you know, it has a knock-on effect for all of our 3 of our charities for various reasons, and cost of living, etc. So, you know, it's less money, more demand, less money, more demand, and it's always been like that. But I don't think it's ever been like that quite as much as it has in the last 5 years, to the point where, you know, when you look at services that are sort of breaking down, like NHS and medical services, and people just not coping, and where people may have been able to, you know, that impacts families, that impacts relationships, that impacts ability to self-manage, that impacts health, all of those things. But yeah, for me, it'd be exactly the same as Carrie and Claire. It's just that worry of your staff, making sure they're okay, because you're not seeing cases, you know, you're not getting the simple cases anymore. You're getting the really complex cases where people have so much going on that you can't fix it. And I know we're not in the business of fixing people's lives, but you want to feel that you've made a real difference, and sometimes you can't, because there's just, you know, you just can't, because their rent's way too high and the money they're getting is just way too low, and their health's set too bad, and you can signpost them to, I don't know, their GP, but they probably won't get an appointment for a month, or, you know, and you can tell them to maximise their income, but it won't be enough money to do what they want to do. So, or to live a standard of living that we would expect in this day and age, really. So, but yeah, and also as a charity, you just want to make sure that you're sustainable. So it's that funding. And I think all charities now are just in this rat race of constant fundraising in order to stay up, just stay alive, and also meet demand, because really we could be a lot bigger. You know, we've got people waiting 6 weeks for a debt appointment. You know, I'd like them to wait a week, but you know, the Gateway on the islands, like, it's got 17 people coming in 2 hours, all with complex issues. So it's just trying to meet that demand. And that's why we've looked strategy-wise, we're targeting groups that are most vulnerable, because you're having to. But then there's a lot of other people that are less vulnerable, but they're still vulnerable, that you can't support as much as you'd like. So,
Yeah.
I
Carrie.
think Jude hits it on the head, really. This waiting list thing is quite new to us. We always had at least some kind of contact with somebody who was coming into service within 24, 48 hours. And now we're having to implement waiting lists, and that's something we don't feel great about it, but it's the demand on the services. And we've grown as an organisation since the pandemic, but we're still having to implement waiting lists to protect the staff. They really do not like it when we do that. But, you know, in terms of having to protect them, because of the complexities of the cases that they're working with are so much higher than they were pre-pandemic. And that's kind of a knock-on effect of statutory cuts and increasing mental health challenges, all these layers of additional disadvantage that are kind of coming to fruition. And I think in terms of those accessing our services, and we think about those complexities, trying to get them that onward referral, like Claire said, trying to get them you're telling us you're not feeling great, go to the GP. Actually, they can't get that GP appointment, which means that they're dependent more on those services that they can access, and you start to have to almost withdraw from people that still need you, because it's not necessarily our remit to cope with every issue that somebody's kind of going through. But that's not a nice place to be when you're kind of saying, actually, it's kind of crossing our boundaries for what we do deliver and what we're expertise in. Sometimes we kind of get people that are in debt crisis, or needing, food packages, things like that, and other services are there. But like you said, there's a waiting list for that, and they're worried right now. So they're going to talk to the one person that's currently on the phone, which could be our safety support advisors. And it's just the impact of that really for the teams. It's one of those things that the charity sector are really holding up society at the moment. And it's it's worrying because this is potentially the tip of the iceberg with the the way that things are being spoken around cuts, etc. And we've gone from a heyday in pre-pandemic or during the pandemic. There seemed to be a lot of money coming out to charities, to specialist DA services, and to those community groups to make the difference. And then that seems to have obviously had that top ending and funding from some of those trusts and foundations, and their money's dwindled where interest rates have gone down. There's not as much money to give out, and there seems to be more charities, kind of always a new charity popping up to do something. So there's more competition for those grants and for the volunteers to join the services to help deliver those vital services that we all deliver. And and there's a knock-on effect in society where the cost of living going up, public donations. Somebody's got a donation into service and they're kind of finding it hard to make ends meet. That's going to be cut from their priority list, quite understandably, but unfortunate for those of us that are dependent on receiving income from public donations. And it's a chicken and egg situation. We can't change any of this without money, because public want and deserve, and we want to deliver expert services. But it costs money to be an expert in something. I think there's also this perception quite widely in the charity sector, or not in the charity sector, because those of us that work know, but in the public, that everyone in charity does everything for free. They don't realise you have to pay insurance costs, and you don't have to pay, for the health and safety man to come round and test your smoke alarms however many times a year. So there's lots of layers of things that kind of cost a lot of money to provide a professional service, but that doesn't seem to be able to. We can't seem to balance the books all the time. It's almost feels like we're moving pots around a little bit and chasing a never-ending rainbow.
Yeah, that's it's a real worry. And the funding, oh, sorry, I had an email. Yes, but this question made us a bit like worry at the moment now. When we started the podcast, we were just, but it's real. It's real. We need them. And the, yes.
Positivity though, Zena. I think that what we got to remember is by just having conversations for women together, you're promoting collaboration. We all can support each other, and the peer support that I get from my colleagues on screen is really beneficial to help realize that we're not in our situation on our own. We're doing the best that we are actually possible of doing in that moment, and we share ideas. We sometimes share a bit of a gripe, and we can see the good that we do within the services that we do, and we will overcome and still continue to make a difference. It might just be a different difference to what we did 5 years ago.
And yes, the fact or the knowing that you're not alone, there are others who are going through the same thing, and that sense of community and belonging, and that you can get support, or you can have somebody to talk with and share the worries, the struggles, or even your thoughts and feelings. That is a huge thing we need. And this podcast is just for that, just to get together, know each other more, and talking it helps. There is talking therapy, so this is a nice space for us to share our worries, our hopes, aspirations. We are going to talk about that a bit later. But now let's talk more about something. Collaboration. Have we considered collaborating with other charities? Are we working together, and how is that? How does it look like at the moment?
I think there is, we've got some beautiful partnerships with some other charities. It's about that alignment. Partnership working is actually really difficult because how do you define a clear partnership? Unfortunately, a lot of funding opportunities require one body to be, the the main party, and that can cause a lot of conflict. So it is a balance, but I think that we're good at it. It's not always easy, but yeah, I think it's just looking at them opportunities, isn't it? Being aware of what your partners can deliver, and when something comes up, thinking of them. It is hard. It is really hard because we're all in isolation, trying to keep our own charities afloat.
Yeah.
So if there's a potential funding coming in that you could probably work it out and get all of the funding for yourself, does that then become your priority over looking for a partner? I'd like to think that we don't. I like to play with my toys, share my toys. I'd like to think we don't work that way, but it's a competitive market at the moment, so it does make it really hard. I think there's these funders want to want more outcomes out of for less money. So then splitting that or with someone else and adding another layer of what you've got of what you've got to achieve to have that outcome is sometimes complicated. I think we're all working on a project together now, aren't we, in some shape or form? So we do it, but it's not always easy. It does take building trust and a relationship with your colleagues.
Yeah.
I think it's time as well. I mean, I think because you need that time, which I think is really important, investing time in getting to know your peers and what they're doing and understanding their organisation and building trusting relationships with them. I think it is really positive and really important. I think we're pretty good at it in Swale. Obviously, we've got the relatively newly formed Swale Voluntary Alliance, which at its heart is that's what it's all about: partnership working and working together to make sure you're delivering the best for clients. And many of the service users, I've no doubt there's a lot of service users that have been through all three of our organisations. So, but I wouldn't say that's a duplication because we all do quite different things. But then, by working together, you can have a much, if you work combined for one individual, that the impact is going to be huge if they hit all of your organizations and need something different. So there's loads of benefit to it. But like Claire says, it's funding is, what we all need is just funding for core costs. And sometimes you feel frustrated because you just think, well, just open your eyes and see the work we're doing. Isn't that enough? Just give us some money so we can keep going. But you're not allowed to do that, Zena. You have to come up with something innovative and new and a project. And not all the time, but most of the time, you're competing with lots of other charities who ultimately need the same. So it's how do you stand out? And that's quite exhausting because, I think we all stand out in our own right and we all deliver amazing services and we can all produce outcomes that show that. We're all established charities that clearly work and provide a great outcomes for the community and a great support network for the community. But yeah, partnership working is good. And if any opportunities come up, we regularly think about, could we do that with them or, would that work? But it's finding the right ones that fit both organisations. It's another challenge.
Yeah. Carrie.
Yeah, so I think what my colleagues have said is true, but I do think that partnership and collaboration does go much deeper than that. It's the acknowledgement of shared learning, shared experiences, and just even being able to signpost on. So we're working at the Heather House Hub now. We've got a place here which is the former Age UK site, which Claire oversees, and Michelle, who was with us earlier, oversees the cafe at the other end. So, we're kind of working quite collaboratively here because I today had somebody come in who tried to donate some, or who did donate some women's clothing to the cafe, and they said to them, hang on a second, we've got the women's shareware project, this sits better with them. And so they introduced that person to us, who had experienced domestic abuse as an adult for a substantive period of time, didn't really know we even existed. So it's formed another relationship for the community by them. They could have quite easily taken that. They've got service users who would have benefited from that donation, but by collaboratively passing that information on and making that introduction means that she now has knowledge of a space that she can come if she requires support at any time. And she did cite another member of her family who had been living with abuse more recently, and so she now knows that the package is here should that person want to access support and services themselves. Whereas without that collaborative thinking and shared approach, those bags of clothes could just be sitting at the other side of the corridor, and that woman be no wiser as to what services were available. And and things like that happen quite frequently in the hub. We have people that come through and they're looking for information on Age UK, and there's perhaps, or for the chiropody service or something, and there's nobody here, but you hear other people explaining what's happening, and here's a leaflet, and making sure that knowledge is shared. And I think that's a kind of collaboration that we have as added value. We're not able to get funded in its own right, but it's a pure added value of the commitment to the sector that we've got, certainly at Heather House, but amongst a lot of the Swale charity partners too.
Yes, that's beautifully explained. And I'm going to ask another question. I know that you mentioned it's about support, what our charities need, what type of support in addition to funding. So let's talk a bit about this. What support do we need to keep moving in addition to funding? We have already raised the point of funding. So yes, Claire, I see that you are unmuted. So yes.
Yeah, I just thought I'd go first every time, and we can stay in the circle. For us, like for my organisation, it's about, I suppose, it's probably more about word of mouth and people actually understanding what it is that what support my charity offers and what we're about. I think we call it the curse of Age UK's, because people have already got an interpretation when you say Age UK of a really old-fashioned day centre where everyone plays bingo at 2:00 and there are crochet blankets on the back of high back chairs, and there might still be some bingos somewhere amongst it, but we're definitely not that, and so much bigger than that. So I just, if someone could do something for me, it would be like engage with what we're putting out there, engage with our marketing, broaden your mind, be a little bit more open-minded about what Age UK can do. I mean, we're an over 50s and adults with learning disabilities charity. We're not just here to support people who are frail and elderly. We're here to support people with preventing being frail and elderly as well, and the challenges that come with being an older adult. So yes, I think that is one of the biggest things, and something that we kind of fight every day with, is trying to just sort of break down the stigma that's attached to being quite a, say, traditional long-standing charity.
Yeah, I think we experience exactly the same, Claire, as Citizens Advice. I think there are some preconceived ideas about what, that it's sort of a cup of tea and a little tell me your problem, and but it's a lot more than that. It's a proper insured, accredited advice that's quality checked. It's legally based. There's a hell of a lot of training that goes into somebody before they're even allowed to deliver advice. So and also about the range of things that we can support with. So it's about your profile, and it's double-sided because it's great because everyone's heard of Age UK, and everyone's heard of Citizens Advice, and but it's but that doesn't mean that they know what you do or what you represent. So I think there's a responsibility really on everyone's out there in the voluntary sector, but also statutory services, to really have a deep understanding about what we do, especially if they do, if they sort of want you to support what they're doing. Actually, we are. They need that marketing, and that profile of who we are needs to be really clear and put out there to the public. Word of mouth is great. We can put everything, we put loads out on social media, but it's sometimes you feel it needs to be a little bit more support, perhaps from private businesses and community. That, like, we live in a community. We're not just this bubble of charities. I think it should be community owned, and people should, if they want to do one thing to help their community, they can invest some of their time and energy in understanding what's out there that might support their staff, or someone that walks through their door, or their neighbour, or their mum, or their sister. And I think that would add a lot of value, not only to us as an organisation, but to the community in general. But
yeah, breaking and addressing those assumptions and it's a real challenge. Even though we're doing the marketing, as you said, word of mouth, but needs more work. I don't know what is the other moment, but we're struggling with that at Diversity House as well. They don't know what we're doing, or we thought that I agree with you there, Jude and Claire. I don't know how can we address the other moment, but it's worth investigating and researching and putting a plan for that. Carrie.
Yeah, I think it is widely accepted that charities will just be here and we just keep doing. And from what Jude just said about making it a community investment, we can guarantee that somebody that we know would have accessed one of our services. We know that, so if somebody from our immediate circle has access to one of our services, think about if we duplicate that to every person that lives within our districts, and that's a lot of people that have accessed our services. And by always expecting a service to be there doesn't necessarily kind of support the fact that it always will be. So that's not very articulate. It's kind of like, it's a bit like the NHS. We always assume the NHS is going to be there until it's kind of we're being told that it's on bankruptcy, when it's going to be sold to the Americans, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, all of which is not currently true. But we never know. We can't take for granted that it would always be the same, because there's just not enough money to underpin it. And I think for all of these services, if people want them to still be here, they need to take care to invest in those and champion them, champion the messages. I think more than that, kind of on a systems level, people need to champion the reasons for why we exist in the first place. So if we can level up and we can reduce some of the inequalities, there possibly wouldn't be such a need for some of the services to be there. So if like Claire mentioned earlier, if elderly people were treated differently within society and valued slightly more, they wouldn't necessarily be dependent on a charity to meet some of those basic needs that they are having to. And if there was less misogyny in society, there possibly wouldn't be such a need for domestic abuse services. There's this whole thing as what is the cause of, and can we as a society make changes to that? As individuals, no, but as a collective, we can campaign for change, whether that be for domestic abuse, for the elderly, whether it be for the disabled, whether it be for migrants, whoever. But we can make a difference at the level that then means that there's not a need for interventions from charities that need to step in to help, because hopefully we would have eradicated some of that need. So I mean, I don't know how we even get that ask made, because it's like, where do you even start? Where does the money come from? But ultimately, if we had a magic wand, we could change some of the systems, change some of the policies, and then that would resolve our funding crisis, because the numbers that need our services would reduce.
Yeah, I agree. I think making changes in societies would be fantastic. I think just what we're fighting, it does feel like you're fighting a losing battle sometimes. Just with like, there's so much sort of hatred out there. If you look on social media, and so much narrative that's opposite to what everything Carrie's just said, which is not to be negative, but it can be quite depressing when you look at that. And it's just, I think when you work in this sector, it's so contrary to everything we're trying to do and everything we're trying to achieve. But absolutely, yeah, that is those changes. I mean, I think it starts education in schools is key, and sort of supporting communities and families. But it's it's much wider than us all as individual organisations. But yeah, no, that's a good point, Carrie.
Yeah. Well, I think we are having 10 minutes before we finish this podcast. I'm going to give you space to say anything that I didn't ask about, something that's going on in your mind and you want to share it. So please feel free to do that.
I was going to ask, what are your thoughts on it all, Dr. Zena, working for a charity?
Yeah. Oh, that's a very broad question, but it's interesting. As I said, I accepted to work in charity because I just wanted to help others. I know it's, at first, to be honest, I didn't thought that it is very hard. Now I'm exploring and I'm learning, and it's totally different from what I used to do. It's nice, it's rewarding in different ways, but it's difficult, especially the funding point that you all raised. That's a huge worry. In addition, also to the individuals themselves, we're working with a very challenging, I'm talking from a Diversity House perspective, very challenging population or participants, people who need help, and some of them, they don't know what help they need. People who struggle with commitment, discipline. Yes, they want change, they want better life, but they are not ready. I'm not going to say they are not, because I'm not sure whether they are intentionally, they are aware if they are ready for change or they are not ready for the change. Are they doing what makes them change or not? I don't have answers to that. But what I can see at the moment is the people we have, the people who are coming to us, they need different level of support at the same time. If they're looking for a job, the help they need is not that job. It's more, it's wider than that. It's very complicated. It can be at the individual level. It can be at the personality level. Well-being, mindsets, skills, experience. So all of that, it's nice if we can see the change, but it takes time to see the change that we want to see, and that what makes it very hard. And for us as individual, we really need, I don't know, how do you lift yourself up when things go, when you feel a bit down or you don't achieve what you want to see. But it's it's just, it's in a way, it's a nice experience, but it's very challenging. It's not easy. Yeah, so that's why I just appreciate the work of charities. Before starting working at charity, I had those misconceptions, and then I started doing my research and getting to know what charities, what they do, what is their mission, you're doing a great job.
What did you do before, Dr. Zena? Sorry, I'm being nosy now.
Well, I have always been in academia, so at the university level, and also I work with adults. So I did some teaching while I was finishing my PhD in different schools across Canterbury and Kent. But now I work more with PhD researchers and master students. So I work more coaching for them to finish their PhDs, and I do editing and proofreading. So yeah, it's more, I don't have that problem. I mean, the participants, it's easier because the people I have there, they already know their purpose. They are committed. They invest in themselves. They do all what it takes to achieve what they want. It's so easy. But when we come to charity work, whether it is Age UK, Satida, or Citizen Advice, or Diversity House, yeah, the individuals themselves are very complicated. There is nothing wrong with them. It's just the environment or all the factors. Yeah, I don't know whether I answered your question or not, but yeah, that's my takeaway.
I think that's really, really valid, actually. Some of the points you made about the complexities, and the individuals that come to us generally have experienced trauma and deprivation and disadvantage, and there's a lot of layers to that. So when we're kind of being asked, if we was to ask them what would they like, and their goal is to do something, it's so big, but it's breaking down those tiny little chunks to try and change the narrative with, actually, let's not think about you going to have a full-time job where you do this, that, and the other. Let's think about you just feeling that you can make the choices when you do your weekly shop. That's a massive choice for victims of abuse and those that are living with disadvantage and deprivation. Sometimes a lot of choice has been taken away. And I think that is one of the things that I certainly didn't appreciate before I started working in this sector as much. I think having been able to make my own choices throughout my adult life quite widely, you don't realise that sometimes there are people that have not had that autonomy. They've not been given permission to trust their instincts or get it wrong, because getting it wrong is the worst thing that can happen for some in a certain situation. So I think that's those layers mean it's challenging to make large changes all the time, but sometimes we just need to celebrate those little wins, where we've helped somebody feel confident enough to make that phone call to the doctor, to at least talk to that doctor's receptionist, and they might put that off for 3 or 4 years. So I think, yeah, it is hard, and it's nice of you to kind of say how your viewpoint on being a leader within a charity has changed, because we are like little micro businesses. We've got all the responsibility but none of the infrastructure. So it's kind of, somebody says, what is it that you do? And it became a bit of a standing joke, actually, because I was sat with one of our facilitators before I was chief exec, and they were like, what is it you do? And I was like, well, I do the social media, I do this, I run this project, I do that, I do this, I do the finance. And I was like, actually, what I don't do is I don't facilitate the groups, because that's your bit. Everything else kind of can fall into, that leadership role. And I think that that's what is sometimes not represented from those that work in a regular business, or somewhere that's a larger organization, where they have these structures of just how many layers there is to being to overseeing a charity, kind of on the emotional and the practical side of things. So I really appreciate you saying that you kind of didn't realize that until you became a charity worker yourself.
Yeah, and I love the point you raised, Carrie. Celebrate the little wins. That's how we are going to keep going doing charity work. And celebrate those little wins on a daily basis. Yes. Any last thoughts, feelings you want to share before we finish this lovely discussion?
Nothing from me, thank you. I think we've covered a lot, haven't we?
No, nothing for me, but it's great to see you all here today. So thank you, Dr. Sina.
Thank you. Thank
you for hosting us, and hopefully everyone can have a nice cup of tea and a piece of cake, because it's mid-afternoon. So
It is. It's Cup of
No
tea
wine
time.
yet for
That's
us,
one thing
Claire.
charity is quite good at, is
It's
we are
Tuesday.
quite good at pulling the old tea out and generally having biscuits and cake around.
Biscuits. Yeah.
I'm more of a mini cheddars girl, but I know I've got some in the office, so I'm headed straight for them when we finish.
Oh,
Enjoy, Jude.
well, yes, I cannot have anything until 6:30 p.m. because I'm fasting, but
Wow.
enjoy.
Is today the last day? Excuse my ignorance, but I heard on the radio that somebody was talking about breaking
Eid, is it Eid? Is
yeah,
Eid.
making their fast for Eid. Sorry,
Yeah,
that
it's
sounds very
on.
ignorant. Can get confused.
No, it's on the 31st. We finish. That's when Eid is. Yeah, that's the celebration. Yeah,
Wow.
5
more
weeks.
Wow.
days.
Much respect to you for being able to be disciplined enough to continue.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, I appreciate your time,
Thank you.
Claire, Carrie, Jude. I really appreciate your time. I know that you are juggling different roles at the same time. So thank you. Thank you so much for accepting to be part of this podcast. And I hope that this podcast made you feel a bit good. I don't know, in a way, it helps you in a way. Yes, other than that, I see you somewhere around.
Soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.